allocation to Westminster for this upcoming cycle is 9,737 units. Although that number is quite high, Westminster's allocation for the fifth cycle was embarrassingly low compared to other cities in Orange County, especially for a city our size. While the city does not have to construct these units, it must demonstrate that it is creating adequate opportunities and/or incentives for housing growth in its housing element, including enough land zoned for housing to accommodate its RHNA allocation. The city's 11-page letter of appeal to SCAG dated October 26, 2020 stated the allocation being appealed was 9,733 units, not 37 units for some reason. I went to the SCAG website and extracted a 36-page document related to the city's appeal hearing on January 22nd, 2021. The city suggested the allocation should be reduced to only 1,207 units. While it's commendable to appeal the allocation, the city's basis for the appeal was to challenge the adopted methodology applied to all jurisdictions, which was probably not the best approach. While SCAG recognized there may be other ways to assess resource levels, disadvantage, and segregation data, such as the city's proposal to use draft 2021 TCAC HCD data, they stated alternative data sources cannot be used in the RHNA appeals process, which makes sense. They must apply the same adopted methodology consistently to all jurisdictions and cannot substitute more recent data for one jurisdiction, but not everyone else. The methodology must be adopted at a certain point in the process and be applied consistently to all jurisdictions, which was done. The staff report incorrectly states that Southern California's regional allocation is 1,344,740 units. SCAG submitted an objection to the Department of Housing and Community Development, HCD, on September 18, 2019. HCD responded by reducing the regional allocation to 1,341,827 units in a letter dated October 15, 2019. The breakdown by income category for that final regional allocation is 26.2% very low income, which includes extremely low income, 15.4% low income, 16.7% moderate income, and 41.7% above moderate income. Westminster's allocation from SCAG favors moderate and above moderate income even more, and very low income is much lower. Westminster's breakdown is 19.3% very low income, which includes the extremely low income, 15.1% low income, 18.3% moderate income, and 47.3% above moderate income. HCD should not lump extremely low income, which is 0 to 30% of the area median income, in with very low income, which is 30 to 50% of the area median income. Tonight's staff report doesn't even mention this and seems to ignore the extremely low income demographic. 16 to 17% of our residents live in poverty, and that was before the substantial pandemic-related unemployment increase. Many are seniors on small fixed incomes. Tonight's presentation provides a very brief summary of community feedback obtained thus far, which I'm guessing came from the online survey. What is the number and demographics of those respondents? I attended the virtual workshop on December 3rd, where I provided input, which I don't see reflected in tonight's report. Currently, the city has 0 units where the rental rate is set based upon a fixed percentage of the tenant's income. For extremely low income residents, excluding those experiencing homelessness, this is truly the only affordable housing option. A footnote in tonight's presentation states the 2020 average median income, AMI, in Orange County is $103,000. Average and median are two different statistical measures. Given the high number, it is likely the average, AKA mean income, not median, but median is what is used for housing allocations. It also doesn't say whether the number is per household or per person, but again, given the high number, it is likely per household. And the AMI abbreviation typically refers to area median income, not average median income. So the footnote is meaningless to this process. I'm not trying to be critical, but facts and accuracy matter here. Westminster's median household income is about 30% lower than the county's. We need to focus on providing housing to the very low and extremely low income households. Perhaps we can mandate developers to designate a percentage of new units built to these two specific demographics, providing truly affordable housing to the most vulnerable in our community, maybe about 20% or higher. And please, let's look into development partnerships to build rental housing where the rental rates are set as a percentage of each tenant's income with the rest subsidized. De La Rosa does not serve the extremely low income demographic other than the chronically homeless through the county, and Westminster Crossing may, but not with rental rates set as a percentage of tenant income to my knowledge. I look forward to my continued involvement in this process. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Jody Boyd. Jody.
Good evening, everybody. This is Jody. I wanted to let everybody know that I am here and listening very attentively. I think that there's one thing that we can all agree on, and that is the need to add more housing units to Westminster. And it is a win-win situation, whereas by adding more housing units, the more units we provide, maybe the rents dollar-wise will go down. But most importantly, as we add new housing units, it also gives the city a bit of a facelift because we'll be adding housing units that are aesthetically more pleasing. With the addition of more housing units and the grants and funding that we can get as part of the rapid rehousing programs for the homeless, we can leverage all of this to get the grants, the funding, and the developers that we need to achieve many of our goals together. As always, I'm here to assist you in any way that I possibly can. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, I do not have any additional speakers.
All right, so I close oral communication, and next we have presentation on housing element update.
Thank you,
Alexa.
Mayor, City Council, and our commissioners for joining us for this early start tonight. We appreciate the extra time that you're dedicating this evening to this important project. We are here tonight to talk about the housing element update. The housing element is a component of our general plan, but unlike the rest of our general plan, the housing element is on a cycle, an update cycle of every 8 years. And this cycle will indeed be very different than the last one and different than the ones before it. A lot of that is driven by the state's understanding of the housing crisis and the need to provide more housing in order to help ameliorate that crisis. So over the last several years, they have pushed through several pieces of legislation that are targeting the increase of housing production, and this process has been no different. They've assigned a much larger number to the Southern California region of housing that needs to be accommodated, and the process that went through wound up allocating almost 10,000 units to Westminster. So this will indeed be a very, very different process than we've experienced before for all of these reasons, simply the number of units, the different pieces of legislation that have come through, and how the housing element needs to adapt to those new pieces of information this time around. We're going to go through all of this tonight to give you a little bit of an overview of where we're at, what we need to do, where we're headed towards. But I do want to take this opportunity to speak very directly and very seriously to the fact that whatever the outcome is of this process, it will have substantial implications for this community that are different than what we've experienced so far in many cases. I'm talking about density, increase of heights, policy tools that deal with affordable housing that we haven't used before. All of those things are very much on the table and in conversation as we go through this process. So we wanted to take tonight to be able to share information with you, foster a conversation, any questions that you have so far. This is an iterative process. This won't be the only time we talk about it, but we wanted to have this real focused discussion tonight to get this process going. We have a great consultant team that we've hired to assist us with this. They're experts in the field. They're working on housing elements that are ahead of ours in Northern California. Their cycle starts a little bit before ours, so they've had a lot of experience dealing with the state and HCD, who will ultimately be asked to to certify our housing element. So we're very happy to have Genova Planning on board. They're here tonight. And with that, I'm actually going to introduce you to Amanda Tropiano with Genova Planning. She's going to start our conversation tonight with the presentation, and then we'll move into questions and discussion.
All right, thank you so much, Alexa. We do have a presentation, and first I wanted to introduce myself and Megan Thorne. So my name's Amanda Tropiano. I'm a principal with De Novo Planning Group, working on housing elements across the state, as Alexa had mentioned. So really excited to be working with the City of Westminster. I had the pleasure of working with this community several years ago on your general plan update. So if I'm a familiar face, that might be why. So it's really nice to be back and to help you through through this part of the process as well. I'm also joined by Megan Thorne as senior planner, also with De Novo, working on this project. So with that, I just to clarify if I should be sharing my screen or if that would be run through the city.
I think, yeah, for you to share your screen, Christine, can you press whatever button to allow her to?
I can. So
Okay.
I will go ahead and get that
Great.
set up. Just give me one moment to share my screen with you.
Thank you.
Are we having share screen issues?
Nope, I'm just sharing it right now.
Okay, perfect. Just making
Thank
sure.
you. Okay, thank you. So again, tonight we're here to talk specifically about the regional housing needs allocation assigned to the City of Westminster, along with the general process to update your housing element. So we've already gone through team introductions. This is a long process. We're kind of right in the middle of it. So work really initiated at the end of 2020 by working with HCD and with SCAG to, file that appeal and to, really ensure that the allocation that was given to the city would be what we need to consider and plan for moving forward. We're kind of right in the middle of this process where we've evaluated some existing conditions. We've begun to initiate the public outreach process, although that's ongoing for the duration of the preparation of the housing element. And then really working on taking that input, taking this information, understanding your unique needs, and crafting that draft housing element. So as Alexa had mentioned, the state of California is facing a housing crisis that's primarily represented through a shortage of affordable, available housing for people of all different types, incomes, abilities, and ages. Housing in Westminster has gotten more expensive over time. Your rents, your home prices, they're rising. The community is a desirable place to live. People want to call Westminster home. The community has a high percentage of renters when compared to the rest of the region. Over 60% of your residents rent their home. And renters are particularly vulnerable to overpaying for housing, meaning they spend more than 30% of their household income on housing costs, like their rent, utilities, other bills that go into, safe and secure housing. The median home price in Westminster in 2020 was about $758,000. So to put that in perspective, that means a household would need to make about $145,000 a year, or about $70 an hour combined, to afford that median home price. So like we've discussed, the City of Westminster received a regional housing needs allocation from the state through our Southern California Association of Governments, and it's the city's obligation to demonstrate that there's sufficient land zoned at the right densities and intensities to accommodate this need. And I want to be clear that the City of Westminster is not responsible for building housing. You are not responsible for building housing. What you are responsible for is ensuring that the framework is available for housing to be developed to accommodate that regional need that you've been assigned. Again, just under 10,000 units. And really, the process that was used by the state of California and by the Southern California Association of Governments to arrive at that allocation for Westminster really placed a lot of emphasis on locating housing near regional transit and connectivity facilities. So a community like Westminster with highways and Beach Boulevard and great bus service, it just ended up being a really large allocation for your community in this cycle. But homes come in lots of different types and sizes. And I think that if we all thought back to every type of home we've lived in ourselves over the years, we could think that we've lived in different types of places over time. So different people of different lifestyles and abilities need and want to live in different types of places over the course of their life. So a city like Westminster can offer a variety of housing choices for their residents that want to stay in the community and maybe have smaller properties to maintain, or want to raise a family or live with extended family. Another benefit to offering a wide variety of housing is that providing a lot of housing choices helps attract quality employers that are looking for safe and secure housing for their employees. So by providing a range of different choices in your community, you can help to strengthen your employment base as well. So the city's state mandated RENA for the 2021 to 2029 planning period, again, is just under 10,000 units at 9,737 units. And those units are broken down by income category. So we need to look at different types of household incomes, and the state determines over that total allocation, so over your 9,737 units, how many need to be suitable for lower income families, low income families, families making moderate incomes, and families making above moderate incomes. And we're looking at the very low income is 0 to 50% of the area median income. I did hear that public comment. I will update this slide and before we load it to the website. It is of the area median income, and that's determined in Orange County. So that percentage of the city's allocation was about 1,876 units. For low income households, earning 51 to 80% of the area median income is about 1,470 units. Moderate income, earning 81% to 120% of the area median income, another 1,800 units, and above moderate, so those households earning more than 120% of the area median income, which for Orange County was $103,000 per year. That's where the majority of your units are at. So about half of your units allocated to above moderate income and about half allocated to the lower categories.
Amanda, just very quickly, just to address the comment for the council and commissioners that are here, 103,000 should be the AMI for a household of 4 people. For whatever reason, that's just the standard that's used. The state actually publishes affordability schedules on an annual basis by the number of people in the household. So a 1-person household has a different threshold than a 2-person, than a 6-person, than anything else. So those are standard schedules that are published annually. This just happens to be the number for a household of 4 this year.
That's correct. Thank you for that clarification. Again, that is prescribed to the city. It is not something that is uniquely developed for this project. We are assigned that value. So we have begun to initiate a conversation with the community about this. Again, this is the beginning of kind of a year-long process to get to know existing conditions, understand where issues and opportunities are at, and how the city can best plan to accommodate its RENA. So we are using a multi-pronged, multi-tier, multilingual approach to engaging your community, including those that might not typically be involved in the process, to really hear from all corners of the community about their value related to future housing and safe and secure housing for your residents and future residents. So there's a dedicated project website. There's been a housing survey that's been circulated online and in hard copies. A virtual workshop was held in 3 languages, English, Spanish, and Vietnamese simultaneously in early December. There's been a Every Door direct mailer published, also trilingual, that was delivered to every single address in the city of Westminster. We've got bus shelter ads, radio ads, social media posts, posts in the community newsletter. If there's anything else you can think of that we're not doing, we are all ears. So please let us know. Some of the things we've heard so far we're still just kind of assembling the results. That online survey closed just at the end of January. So we're still in the process of synthesizing that information and summarizing it. But some of the things we've heard so far, 40% of respondents would rate their housing as showing signs of minor deferred maintenance, like peeling paint or chipped roof tiles. 25% think that their home's in pretty excellent condition, but over a third think that their home needs moderate or major upgrades in order to be satisfactory. 60% of the respondents were happy with the type of housing choices available in Westminster, but 40% thought that there could be better choices. 66% of respondents were satisfied or somewhat satisfied with their current situation. And, for those of them looking to buy a home in Westminster that don't already own one, think that just the affordability and the cost to rent or own a home are the biggest burdens. So some of the priorities that the community has started to indicate are important to them include ensuring that children who grow up in the community can afford to continue to live here, a special focus on establishing safe and secure housing for seniors, large families, veterans, persons with disabilities, and other special needs groups, working to establish programs that help homeowners that are at risk of losing their homes to keep their homes and support them through that process, encouraging the rehabilitation and upgrade of existing older housing stocks, and to support programs that maintain safe and secure neighborhoods. So how are we, approaching this? Again, I'm certainly not here tonight to have all the answers. We're beginning this conversation with you, want to hear your ideas, and we want this to be a true reflection of your priorities for the community and the community's vision for how to accommodate the city's housing. But a few things we are definitely going to look at. We're going to look at the city's approved housing and mixed use projects. So we get to count any projects that receive their COO on after June 30th, 2021. So if it comes online July 1st or later, we get that as a credit right off the top. We also get to look at projects that are in the application pipeline. So project applications that have been submitted, we can consider those as a credit towards your RHNA. We also need to look at places like the ability to accommodate accessory dwelling units or junior accessory dwelling units, ADUs or JADUs. And we're also going to be looking at projects like the ongoing Westminster Mall specific plan and other mixed use areas that were identified in your general plan update. But with that said, we again are exploring the path forward that will satisfactorily accommodate your RHNA in a way that reflects your local priorities. But there is a potential that we will be investigating further your general plan densities and intensities to ensure that you do have that sufficient capacity to accommodate your RHNA at all of those variety of income levels. The state requires low and very low income units to be accommodated on sites that allow for at least 30 DUs an acre. So we need to be really thoughtful about the sites that we look at to accommodate those types of developments, because we do have this requirement from the state to consider the minimum amount of density allowed on that site. And then we're going to see where we're at after all of that. And we're going to need to, take a fine tooth comb and just really extrapolate all of the potential opportunities to get to that 9,700 number. So we can't just look at any site. The state's also, provided us some parameters on the types of things they want to see. So we need to decide which sites are most suitable for accommodating your RHNA based on different acceptability metrics that the state provides us. So they want us to know if the site is occupied or vacant. And I think we can all agree that Westminster has very little vacant land. So in general, we're looking at sites that are occupied. We need to look at the site size and ownership pattern. They don't want parcels that are less than half an acre, and they don't want parcels that are more than 10 acres. They like sites that are owned by public agencies versus private agencies. Then we need to look at the realistic capacity. So we have to look at your past history of projects. What types of densities are you getting? If a community only gets projects that are at 20 dwelling units per acre, and they say a site can accommodate 100 units an acre, that raises some red flags. So we have to prove that these are realistic capacities. And we need to do that through a history of success, both in your community and in similar communities. So where are we headed next? So we've received the final, generally the final allocation. We've gone through the appeal process, as Alexa already updated you on. We're working on preparing a draft housing element that will be circulated for public review and it will provide ample opportunity for the community to weigh in on the goals, policies, and programs identified in the housing element, including the identification of sites to accommodate your RHNA. The housing element is due by statutory requirement to the state of California by October 15th of this year. You actually have 120 days after that, called the grace period, to go through the public hearing process and adopt it. But we're really targeting that October 15th date. That's what we're shooting for. So we are, again, kind of in the middle of that process, but appreciate your time tonight. I know that it was a lot of material we covered, and we're here to answer any questions you have, take your comments, do some research, come back to you, and make sure we're considering all of your important input as we work to craft this housing element. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen so we can get all of the videos back up a little bit more. But if there's anything that you would like me to toggle back to, just let me know.
Thank you for your presentation. And now is the time for the questions and concerns from any member of the City Council and member from Planning Commission. So do we have any question or concerns from?
I do.
Yes. I have a question.
I have a question.
Yeah, so Councilmember Menzel first, and then Councilmember Hall. Yes.
Thank you, Mayor. Amanda, I was going through the HUD website, and I came across something that was talking about a shared housing model that can help meet the RHNA allocation needs. Do you know anything about that, the shared housing model that some cities have been incorporating?
I'm not very familiar with that as a tool. It's not something that has been advocated very significantly, but I can certainly, we're uncovering every stone. So if it's something that you saw some value in, I will certainly do some additional research and explore that as an option and can come back to you.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Hall.
Councilmember, you're on mute.
Okay, start over. Okay, Amanda, you mentioned that ADUs and JADUs potentially counted towards RHNA numbers. So is that's a potential, or is that a sure thing yet?
It's a sure thing. We can count ADUs towards our RHNA number. Yes.
Okay. So so those are ADUs and JADUs starting this year, anything from June 2021 or anything, and also anything in the pipeline, correct?
That's correct. We also get to project forward the anticipated number of ADUs that would be developed during the 8-year planning period. And we can do that through looking at a past history of the number of permitted ADUs annually in the city and in the region, and demonstrate with evidence that the city could assume a certain number of ADUs would be permitted per year times 8 years for the planning period as a credit towards that RHNA.
Okay, so out of all the bullets that you mentioned, where we could potentially get our numbers from, where do you see where do you see our potential? Most of our potential come from?
So the history of the city's general plan did target those 6 areas for mixed use development and focused growth. We will certainly be looking to the potential capacity of those areas first and trying to extract as much potential in those areas as we can. We also recognize that ADUs are being developed in your community, and we want to take advantage of those as a credit towards your RHNA. I think that we also are going to be, required to demonstrate the ability to redevelop some of your occupied sites. So not every parcel in the mixed use areas will be suitable for redevelopment. Some of those parcels are expected to remain in the future. So I would say that we are primarily looking to the capacity in your growth mixed use areas, looking to ADUs and JADUs first, and then we're going to see where we're at.
Okay, I know that. So I just want to clarify before I ask my next question, is this something, the RENA number is something that we're going to get every 8 years, correct? Are they going to give us an allocation every 8 years? So beginning of this year, this is the new number.
Right.
It's drastically high, and I know we lost the appeal, and so I understand that SCAG was going to find a different way to, like a different formula to come up with this number. So do you know anything about that? And is that going to apply for maybe 8 years from now, the next time they do, they assess our RENA allocation, or is that going to be something? I heard they're going to do that next year, due to, the great exodus of people leaving California. Do you know anything about that?
So
actually, that was the update I got, and actually I was on these. I got some updates from our CM, as well as I heard myself being on the some weekly radio, or actually weekly meetings of mayors, and so I listened in on that, and I wanted to know how true that is and whether that's going to be applicable to 8 years from now, or is that going to be something that's going to happen next year that SCAG is going to do?
So you are correct that the city receives an allocation every 8 years. So the allocation facing you now is for the planning period of 2021 to 2029. In 2028, 2029, you'll receive your next 8-year allocation. Each time that allocation is assigned, SCAG develops a unique methodology appropriate at that time. So my full expectation is that 8 years from now, they will have a different methodology to approach distribution of units among their member agencies. It does not need to be the same one that they used 8 years prior, for example, during this cycle. The allocation is developed based on a methodology that SCAG did review and modify over the past 18 months, but it is final and it has been approved by the state of California, and it is required to allocate its assigned 1.3 million units according to that methodology, and those allocations are final. I am not aware of any modifications to be expected next year to that, but 8 years from now, it would be a different story.
I see. Okay, so it's not going to be until 8 years from now. So these numbers basically is what we're responsible for, the 9,700, and that is final. So
That's correct.
So there's no appeal of an appeal. But anyway, so my question to you is that what happens, because many of us probably not familiar with the RENA number since it happens only every 8 years. So what happens if we don't meet our RENA allocation? What happens? Do we not get funding for whatever it is? Could you tell me?
That's a great question. You, again, are not obliged to build the housing. Your responsibility is to ensure that adequate sites are available for people that want to build the housing. So as long as you maintain sufficient capacity at all times, then that is the city's obligation. So you need to just, if this housing does not materialize during the planning period, 9,700 units aren't built, the city is not penalized for that so long as you maintain adequate sites.
Okay, so then we all heard that loud and clear, because I think it's going to be hard to materialize and to actually build out. But I heard you very clearly that we are to provide the framework. Our city is to provide the framework to build, right, 9,700 units. So and
That's
this is
correct.
10,000. So somehow we're going to have to justify, or shall we say, we have to prove that we have the framework for it. How do we prove that? So that would be something that Alexa Smittle would come up with, right, Alexa?
With this consultant team, yes.
Okay. All right, then. It's clear to me. Thank you.
So I want to thank the concern and question from Councilmember Ho, and I mean a number from Rena is a challenge for our city and other city as well. I mean, like we lost appeal. I don't see that we have any other opportunity to appeal like second time, and I think that our city we need to explore any other option. How can we provide a framework? And yeah, I mean, like, it's going to impact all the future project of housing. Yeah, but I think the number is still a big challenge for us. Yeah.
I think we just have to comb through the city. I think we just have to comb through the city and figure out where the potentials are, and then figure out, you know, are we going to be able to provide the framework to build? And that's all we have to show. Then that's what we'd have to do. And so that's the only way we're going to get that big number. That's a huge jump from our last RENA number. So
yeah,
I see it's doable if we are thorough with our, you know, looking at every possibility, every nook and cranny. So I think it's okay. I get it. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm really curious about the other city. How can they provide their framework, like City of Huntington Beach and Garden Grove, and maybe our city staff or our consultant may provide us from other city framework, so we could able to study from it too. Yeah.
I have a quick question.
Please.
Excuse me, Mayor. Thank you. Amanda or Alexa, so when you identify these sites, which, I mean, if you use our general plan as far as the mixed use areas, can you also identify for us which site we have most control of, which I mean, to me, it's the Civic Center area, as far as, and what is the best way for us to take full advantage of that acreage that we have there? I mean, what would be most recommended as far as units per acre on the site that we have most control of, which is city-owned property? Can you also somehow incorporate that in your report for everybody to understand what the site most logical and most potential that we can do something really impactful for not only to meet RENA, but also to meet the needs of our community for affordable housing in that area?
Absolutely.
We'll certainly be looking at all city-owned sites. Yeah.
Okay, and you'll have on the report that the potential for each one of those sites and what's the best way to take advantage of those sites. On those sites that we have most control of, we wouldn't want to build something that's not taking full advantage of the area, like building less units that the potential is there for. Right.
Amanda?
Thank you.
It's just a question as far as what the state is going to want to see. Is this going to be general plan, or do they want to see actual zoning, areas rezoned?
That's a good distinction. So they allow the city to, they want to know the existing general plan and zoning for all the sites that you identify as being suitable for future growth. If the existing general plan designation and existing zoning do not yield the number of units or capacity on the site that you need, you would include in your housing element a program to modify the designation or modify the zoning in the future. So it's okay that a site has a certain general plan designation and a certain zoning designation now, but you would need to include a program that said something like sites that, you know, the mixed use civic center, which currently has a general plan designation allowing up to 40 DUs an acre, shall be amended to increase the maximum density to 60 units an acre or something to that effect. So they want to know both for the sites that you're picking, but you can include a program to change those uses in the future, and you have 2 years to make those changes.
So that's our obligation. So we don't need to be concerned, as you've made very clear, we don't need to be concerned about funding these projects. Or do we really need to be that concerned that we have control, we, the city, have control of the property, as long as we have the general plan and zoning capable of supporting the RENA numbers?
Right. So I think that that's clear. Now, the implication is that your general plan and your zoning would accommodate projects at these variety of densities and intensities. And so as project applications are submitted consistent with those standards, as I'm sure you're all aware, the city is continually more obliged to accept those projects that meet within the context of your general plan and zoning. So with those changes, as projects are proposed, they go through the review process. They're obviously, reviewed with staff, presented to the Planning Commission, presented to the City Council. So if there were modifications to your general plan or zoning, an applicant would still need to come in and propose a project to develop any units there.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have any other questions or concerns from member of this panel?
I have another question, Mayor.
Please.
As far as the issue of homelessness, does that figure in any way into the RENA?
It would have figured into the total allocation assigned to SCAG and in their methodology in distributing to the jurisdictions, but it's not a primary driving factor in their methodology for this cycle. Again, it really relied primarily on access to transportation corridors and activity centers. We are required to address the topic of homelessness in the context of your housing element. And we do need to ensure that the city complies with all legislative requirements in where shelters and supportive shelters are located and allowed within your zoning district. But it doesn't necessarily specifically have to dive very deep into that topic.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions? Let's see what we have here.
I'd just like to make just two quick comments, Mayor. And that is one, I just wanted to thank the staff, and Sandy Kim had prepared the written staff report, and Amanda and her team had done the PowerPoint. Both I thought were very excellent. They were very clear, concise, laid everything out we need to know. So from that standpoint, from a commissioner standpoint, it's appreciated.
Thank you. All right. So if we don't have any question or any concerns, so I'd like to adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Meeting adjourned.
Thank you. And then for all of the council members and staff who are participating in the 7 o'clock meeting, I'll be sending you a link in the next 10 minutes or so.
Okay.
It's a different meeting ID, so you're not going to be using this one. And for those participating in closed session, that's at 6:30. So I will see you in 40 minutes.